Documentary about people's definition of happiness, and what is your definition of happiness?
Being alive.
On what people's definition of happiness is? What is your definition of happiness?
Damn.
To you, like.
I guess just doing what I love to do.
Yeah.
It's not all, I guess in my mind, it's not all about money. It's just doing like everything I like to do, being outdoors, skateboarding, just adventuring, traveling. I feel like that's where I find the most happiness is being out, just doing what I like to do and not really thinking about all the corporate making money kind of stuff.
Fair enough.
My name is Zach Height, and I am an English teacher at San Marcos High School.
I don't have a name. No. My name is Heather Marlaire. I'm a high school English teacher, and I love it.
My name is Andrew Walko. I'm a martial arts instructor and also a firearms instructor.
My name is Ray Medina. I'm a respiratory therapist. Just killing COVID, saving lives.
About what is the definition of happiness? So what is your definition of happiness?
I'd say waking up every day and enjoying what you do, whether it's work, being with family, or doing your activities or whatever.
Are you happy?
Yes, I would say I'm happy.
Are you happy?
Sometimes.
Are you happy?
I'd say I'm happy, but I think there's always room for improvement.
Are you happy?
Yes.
My definition of happiness, honestly, would be simplicity of life. Enjoying whatever abilities you choose to develop, whatever things you get into. You know, making films, playing music, being good at sales, and whatever. They can't see me what I'm gonna say, but you know. But that idea of just, to me, happiness is like having a very simple life where you kind of fill it with things you enjoy, people you enjoy. It doesn't always have to be, objects. Yeah, I mean, happiness to me is like always learning, always being around people I enjoy, being able to play music, being able to draw, paint. I guess creativity brings me happiness.
What's your definition of happiness?
My definition of happiness is, I would say, being able to wake up each day and just feel content with the life you're living, feel like you want to experience what that life is rather than trying to dread it.
What's your definition of happiness?
Happiness is just kind of just being able to do what you want, kind of being able to enjoy life, see positive things, and pursue things that you want, pursue things that interest you, and also, meeting new people and like see how they interact with your life. That's what I like to do. I love talking to people, so it's actually cool,
Happiness is contentment. Happiness is reaching your potential and feeling kind of like you accomplished something.
Probably just feeling like you are where you want to be. You've achieved the things you want to achieve, and you really don't feel like you need more. So I think that'd probably be a definition of happiness.
So what was like the happiest time of your life?
Happiest time of my life? I don't know. I don't know that I necessarily had any like age range where I was happy. I think I was like simultaneously happy and unhappy at different times, right? Like I think as a kid you're happy because you spend time with friends, but you're unhappy because you have all these rules that you have to follow. Then as an adult, like I'm happy because I have all the freedom to like go travel and see like the most beautiful places in the world I've always wanted to see and be, joyful to have those experiences. But then also unhappy because you have all the responsibilities that come with being an adult. So I think I think it's less like time in my life. I think it's just like pockets of happiness and unhappiness.
I think very cliche, but I think I could go sort of a range. Like my wedding day was a pretty happy, like joyous experience. But like the birth of my kids was pretty awesome too. Like not a lot of like stress. It was just like life, both of like all of those are like life events, like big milestones. Those were happy.
And then what's the happiest time of your life?
I don't think I've gotten there yet. I feel like I'm still like stepping to like wherever my final happiness will be. You know what I mean? So I feel like every day is like a step towards the ultimate happy. I don't know, euphoric feeling. I guess I don't know.
I would say when I started coming here, I started really realizing there's a group of people up here that are a lot like me, and had been waiting for something like that for a while. Just wasn't really finding it in San Diego when it comes to terms of colleagues or people my age and stuff like that. And once I started coming up here to train to start, I really started to, again, like I said, find those people that I connected with. And then the further I came here and the more I came here, really started to find that tribe, and discovered that the dojo itself has a lot of people that are on the same level as I am when it comes to, you know, humor, life, and everything on that same plane. And so that's when I've started to really start feeling happier, and felt like I've started to grow as a person. So yeah, I think it's not one specific time. I think it's a prolonged thing that's caused me to feel happier as a person, as opposed to feeling stuck and having to feel like I have to be content with what I have. I've realized that the place and the people you're surrounded with really affect your attitude.
So to live stress-free, would that achieve happiness? And if so, do you need to be a little bit self-centered?
Okay, so I'll answer the first part. To live stress-free, is that happiness? I think that can help. I mean, I think the reality for most people is that like stress is necessary in order to just, you know, achieve. Like, stress is just like facing the responsibilities that you have. And I think just the reality of most people's lives are that you're gonna have stresses. I think recognizing what things are stresses and alleviating unnecessary stresses is part of being happy, like, and finding happiness. Like, you know, if you're burdening yourself with 100 extra things that you don't need to be doing, I think alleviating those could lead to happiness. And then what was the other one? Part of being self-centered?
Do you need to be somewhat self-centered to live stress-free?
Yeah, and I guess I would say, like, I think we have a stigma sometimes of self-centered as being like a bad thing. Like, right? Like it's like, you know, oh, if I do these things for myself, like, I'm being selfish. And I think, like, on the flip side of that is like, you know, if you can't care for yourself, how can you care for other people? Like, right? How can you do things for others? I think there's a spectrum or a balance. Like, you know, like if you're foregoing other people's happiness purely for yours, but if you're, you know, taking on a bunch of burdens and you're not feeling happy, I think that that's a balance. So I think, I would say yes, you have to be kind of somewhat self-centered, but I would argue that self-centered isn't necessarily bad at all.
Do I need to be? Yes, because there is stress in being concerned about meeting the needs of others, okay? And so if I am only concerned with myself and my needs, I can like block out the wants or needs of other people. And so stress comes into play when, again, the needs of others like interrupt whatever trajectory I'm on.
To live stress-free, do you need to be self-centered? A little bit self-centered to a point.
I think the people that are stress-free are the ones that don't give a shit about someone else and anybody else. So, yeah, I think they're always the ones that turn out to be the assholes and turn out to be the people that make everyone else's lives miserable, in my sense. I don't think you can really live without stress in your life. It's just, what level of stress is it to you? You know, go back to the spider.
Yeah.
Not stressful to me, but it doesn't mean I'm a self-centered person, right? It's just, again, we all have a different mindset towards things. I go into work, and some people might find it stressful to have to work with 3 to 5-year-olds all day at a time, and then now after 3 to 5-year-olds, you got to go to the 8, and then teens, and then adults, and it's a completely different mindset you got to make throughout the whole day. And it can be stressful, but to me, I like that because, one, I've developed myself to do it, just like I mentioned before. And again, it's a fake it till you make it thing, because everything that you do that's going to be new is going to be stressful. Everything that you do constantly is going to be stressful because you're just going to always be thinking about it. It's it's what you do to work yourself around that. Now, to be self-centered, I think even those people still have something in their life that makes them stressed, and maybe that's why they act self-centered, because they're stressed about something, and then it just works its way down and around other people too. So I don't think you can ever live stress-free. It's just who you are as a person to help handle it, and then who are you to be able to control it.
So to live stress-free in life, does that bring you happiness? And then second question to add on to that, to live stress-free, do you need to be a little bit self-centered for it?
I don't know. I don't stress though. That's one of my.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I think it's just. I don't worry about things I have no control over.
Yeah.
And it's been hard for me to learn how to do that, but it's taken me years, and that's how I live. So sometimes people might think that I don't care, but it's just like for instance, like the health field, like where people are gonna die and stuff like that, right? Where I just think about, like, you know what, like that's a cycle, that's where they're going, and then like what usually ends up happening is like a baby's born in that family, or like someone that they know. It's like, okay, that's the cycle, you know. So now you have something greater to look forward to, greater to lift up and build, and still have that same memory, but you know, it's just. So I don't focus, or I think focusing on negativity creates stress for people, and worrying about things they have no control over creates stress. I don't have that. I don't do that. I don't focus on stuff that I have no control over.
Perfect. Would you say being a teacher brought you more happiness than you were before, or?
Yeah, so I would say like being a teacher is like, I think like the cool thing about being a teacher is that your happiness is kind of built upon making other students reach their goals and, you know, achieve, you know, great things, which hopefully results in their own happiness, right? So it's almost like your happiness is tied into the happiness of a bunch of other students, of a bunch of other people, and so you also like experience a lot of their sadness as well, because they go through tough things. But I think it's a cool thing where it's like your happiness ties into other people.
And then, as a teacher, do you find happiness in that?
In my job?
Yes.
Oh, extreme happiness. I love my job. I think there's this great like joy or contentment in knowing that you can help others recognize their assets. Like, not everyone loves English, that's okay. That's my like area, right? But everyone can express themselves in some way. And so getting every individual to understand, how do I express myself? How do I capitalize on what I bring to the world? There's great joy and happiness in that. Yeah.
What brings you happiness in your job?
Honestly, just what comes with the students. You start with your white belt, and then you know, 1 year later, you look back and you talk to the parents, and you're like, man, one, maybe this kid couldn't do push-ups at all. Two, maybe he was a jerk all the time at home. And then you start to see how they're taking charge in the classes in a positive way as a leader, how they've changed and started respecting mom and dad. And sometimes it takes even less time, and that's even better, because then you start to really catch on to it a little bit more, the drastic changes that happen. So that's why I do this, is because I love seeing the progress in people, because I think where schools are starting to fall short as leading examples because of everything that's been going on, I think our school in particular really takes a huge step into being a part of almost the family's lives, because every day we ask, how is he doing? How is she doing? So that we can help better their lives, which in turn is just helping the future generation, right? Which hopefully makes further generations a little bit more intelligent in the sense of right decisions and how to deal with, like we're talking about, stress.
Yeah.
You know, everyone needs someone to help them learn how to do that type of stuff and guide them through that, because you feel lost if you don't have a vent, if you don't have someone to talk to. And that's kind of where we come in, where we can either be the disciplinary side, or we can be the psychiatrist side, you know, where we just sit here, we talk, and we go over things, because a lot of times people still don't want to talk, and then we have to get it out of them. So brings me a lot of happiness with what I'm doing here is the progress that you see in the students, and in turn ourselves as well, because then we have to look back at ourselves and ask the same questions and think the same thing, and then represent that. We have to mirror it, so we have to be good people ourselves.
Alright. And then what brings your happiness in your field of work?
Paychecks. I'm just kidding. No, just actually I like helping people. I like going to work and like actually like explain to people like, hey, like this are things that are gonna help you better. These are things that are gonna make you breathe a little easier. Make you. It's easy for me to say while the patient's in a bed, hooked up to stuff, but that I think it's just explaining, teaching like what I know, my profession, and how animated I am about it is just a way for them to hopefully understand it better, So.
Do you think you need to have a down point in your life to find what makes you happy, if that makes sense? So like, do you need to hit
like a bottom? Or something?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. I think everything is relative. So I think like before, like as someone who like recently faced like some tragedy, like personal tragedy with losing like a loved one, like I don't think I was unhappy before that, but I think like my happiness was different. Like what I found joy in, was different. I think I had more freedom to kind of find joy in like small things or whatever, and like now with having faced that, I think I've kind of learned like my happiness. I just kind of realigned what makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think I was unhappy or happier now. I think it's just kind of realigned what matters, because you start to kind of view certain things as not being worth your time to stress over. Like I'd say personally, like I just found like some like things in work were not like worth the stress. It wasn't worth me doing X, Y, Z and like driving myself crazy, because I was like, life's short and I want to make the most of those moments. And then when my dad passed, I like learned like, oh yeah, life is short, and I kind of reevaluated what makes me happy. So yeah, I don't know if you need it, but just realigns it.
So do you think you need to have like a low point in your life to really figure out what happiness is for
That's
you?
an interesting point. So do I need to have a low point to almost compare what a happiness point would be?
Or to find happiness?
Like true happiness? Yeah. I think that's a tough question, because I think, to what extent does someone think of something as a low point, right? It's different for every person. I think there are some people who are just always have like experiences that others would say aren't low, right? Like my low is not your low kind of a thing. But having a point that you consider is less great than another does help you to appreciate, or recognize rather, when something is going well for you. So I guess yes.
Maybe for some people, I think they need to have that contrast. Like, oh wow, I felt horrible this time, and now I feel better, and that's cool. That works for some people. But I don't know. Like low points is it's different for everyone, and it triggers differently for everyone, right? Same situations, the same same circumstance for one person and another person. They're both going to have different feelings, right? Or it's both going to affect them differently. So yeah, a low point, I think it does create so that, okay, I felt like shit then, but I feel great now, So I think it's a good thing to have those low points.
Perfect. Why do you think the most recent generations have been so unhappy?
Because society, we're going to get into this direction. I think society is failing them, and a lot more things are becoming more acceptable. And of course, it's based on region, really. Everyone's, and especially the U.S., is getting very spoiled, and I think that's being taken advantage of. And where the fact of just having running water is seen as the norm, whereas other countries, you have to walk miles to get it. It's taken advantage of. And then you go and start saying you're unhappy because you have to work 40 hours a week. Isn't the right mindset. So I think something or someone is guiding the next generation into thinking that everything has to be handed to them or else they won't be happy. They have to, less is more to them. You know, they think that they should do less to get a lot more, but don't understand where all that's coming from. Someone still has to work in order for you to get all the things you want. And their unhappiness is coming from the need for more and more and more and more and more. And you know, that's a little bit different too, because that's making me think about content. That's a little bit different than content.
No, yeah.
You know, that's being greedy. You know, wanting objects, having an iPhone 12, but having to have the iPhone 12 and a half 3 months later.
Yeah.
You know, because it's got a different color.
Yeah.
That's privilege. That's being greedy, as opposed to being content or trying to build your happiness. Like, that's not going to make you happy. That's just want. So I don't think they truly understand what real happiness is anymore, because I don't think there's a real work ethic anymore. And when there's no work ethic, you don't feel like you've earned something and that you've had to work for something, then you don't feel as happy. You know, you're going to sit around all day at home and then oh, I'm happy sitting around at home, and then it only lasts for so long, you know, playing video games or something like that. Eventually you're going to be, what am I doing? Or I'm stuck with this person that I don't want to be with anymore for a long time. I'm not really happy. And you know, you start to not be able to handle things and deal with things. And that's why you need fear, you need stress, because then it starts to tell you, hey, I need to work on this. It's all there for a reason. So.
Why have the most recent generations been so unhappy? Because there's been a lot of talk about like not being happy, or like people joking about more like suicidal stuff, or like just not being happy. So why has that really picked up in the most recent generations?
Gosh, that's a huge question.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have a couple of theories that I'm sure are not like complete answers, but
No,
I'm
of
sure like are partial parts of it. One I would say is just the birth. Everyone criticizes social media and technology, but like I think what people don't realize is that it's like the first time in the world where you like you just have a device that is tailored to you and makes everything about you and yourself and your interests and all that. And I say that not to like critique it, but it's like literally the point of the device is to keep you on it,
No,
to
of
keep
course.
you scrolling through Instagram,
Yeah.
like to tailor the ads to you. And so you start to see, it starts to kind of activate the part of the brain that deals with who you are and your identity. And you'd think that would make you feel really happy, but when you start to kind of like view yourself as like different or important, that's actually like where a lot of like anxiety comes from, that part of the brain that handles like our ego, our sense of self. When that part is stimulated a lot, like it gets a sense of anxiety, because we're like, what are people thinking? Are people thinking about me? Do people like think that I'm stupid? Do people think this thing? And it starts to kind of make it feel like everyone's watching us, or like things are, and it just kind of it heightens that anxiety. So I think those devices actually don't do a lot to kind of build those connections. I think they kind of devolve the personal connections and the kind of connections to nature and things like that that people need in order to feel happy. And then just like, I would also say like just, I think we also are the first generation. I would also argue that I think we're also part of the first generations who are able to kind of openly talk about mental health and mental illness. So I would argue that people in the 50s and 60s were probably equally as unhappy, but maybe not as comfortable talking about it. So that would be my other theory, is just maybe more people are willing to say how they feel, which is...
Why do you think the recent generations have been so unhappy?
I think the recent generations are unhappy because there's the projection of what you should have and what you should want versus what the environment allows you to access. And so there's unhappiness and discontent with that, because for a long time, the goal has been to have, and is more materialistic in nature. And so when you don't have access to those things, there's great discontent. We're not finding happiness in things that aren't physical, in nature or tangible. So, yeah.
And then, why have the most recent generations been so unhappy? It feels like
I don't know. I think
some people say social media.
a lot of
could be
it's
a
social media. I
factor.
believe that's just because I was born before all that happened, before the internet, like when there was libraries, and now like you have everything in your hand, the palm of your hand, you know, which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because now I think we look at pictures of other people and we look at what other people are doing, how they're traveling, like, oh my God, I want that life. Like, and then it might reflect that their life isn't as good, or their looks aren't as great. Or at the same time, you're also potentially looking at those pictures like, man, I want to be that kind of attractive, so let me do some plastic surgery. And like, it gets more of a mental breakdown, maybe. I don't know. It's just so I think social media has a big play, but it's also a good thing at the same time. You know, it's all in how you decide you want to use it for your advantage. You know.